All right, guys, so today, being that we're putting my 3/4 ton back together for the tow rig, there's a few things that I wanted to put back on. I didn't have time this summer to put them on. And there again, wasn't sure if that engine was staying. Obviously we took the engine out, so anyways, won't talk about that. We're gonna talk about, all right, today we are gonna talk about bypass oil filters. Now I'm gonna just talk about the stuff that I have sitting here. There's multiple different brands that you can buy. You know, do your own research on it if that's what you want to do. If you want one, you don't want one, do as you may. I like running them. Lots of guys don't want to spend the money. If you don't want to spend the money, whatever. I run them. I still change my oil more often than I probably should running one, but I don't usually have to put engines and stuff unless I get really carried away. It has nothing to do with oil. Or wearing, bearing wear, any of that type of jazz. Anyways, so the units that I sell, this is one that I've had around for a long time. This has been on 3 or 4 of my trucks. As you can see that the powder coating is starting to come off, or the coating is coming off. So I'm actually going to sandblast it before we put it back on. But we're going to use this to talk about. So this is a kleenoil filter setup. I'll put a picture of it here, one of these sides here, of the brand. They use this type of a filter media. Oh, actually, I guess it doesn't matter. I'll show it in the video, just so you can do your own setup. They use this type of a filter. Kind of looks like a toilet paper roll. It's not a toilet paper roll, but these filters are they will go down to 1 micron of filtration, but they're 3 micron absolute, which in the oil is pretty tight. So one thing that sets these above some filter setups is they absorb water. So, and lots of people are like, oh well, there's water in your oil. There definitely is water in your oil, especially for guys that are not putting big heat cycles into their engines. You know, for even like how I use my truck lots of times, which is not what they're intended for. I'm one of the, apparently. Anyways, we'll get into that. Sore subject sometimes. Is that the truck will run for short periods of time and you will get moisture in your oil. Most people don't realize it, but you will get moisture in your oil. This will pull that out. But this, like I said, this takes it down to 3 micron absolute. Now these filters setups are not cheap. These filters, I used to sell them. I bought a couple cases a long time ago, and I was selling them for 36 bucks for a race placement filter. Now that being said, I don't know what they are now because I haven't bought any for a long time. So if you're interested in buying one of these, just contact your local distributor directly. I don't have an affiliate with them or anything like that. I've sold them before, and the guy that I used to buy them from, I'm not even sure, or like the distributor in Calgary or in Alberta that I used to buy them from, I don't even know if he's still around. It's been a long time since I bought one. But they're very well built, heavy duty. But like I said, there is a bunch of different ones. But I like these ones, and these were easy for me to get at the time. And I think I still have 10 of these filters, but I will have to buy some more because I'm gonna have these on. I actually have one of these on for you guys that watch all my videos. I have one of these setups actually on my injection testing machine to help keep that system clean. So that tells you, you know, I like, you know, putting on a $50,000 calibrated machine to keep it clean. So, that being said, if you want to do one on the cheap, I do have that set up for you guys. This setup, so it's a Baldwin B146 or 164, sorry. This one is a 5 micron absolute. So, and these are relatively, it's a very cheap setup compared to this one. These ones, I want to say are about $500 Canadian. That's what they used to be. I don't know what they are now. But like I said, these are not cheap setups, but very well built, and they take it down very well. So this will do 5 microns, or sorry, 15 absolute, which is considerably better than the factory filter. The factory filter is 30 absolute. We also have to remember that the full flow filter does not always filter all of your oil, because if it lays on bypass, if the filter gets plugged up, oil's really thick, high RPM, this filter is not filtering all the oil that goes back into the engine. So if there's junk in there, this is not filtering at all. Now this, being these are not full flow, they're bypass filters, they take a small amount of oil and then they clean a small amount of oil constantly. So it's kind of like just a constant trickle going through it. But like I said, this is a very cheap, compared to this, a cheap setup, but obviously doesn't clean it as well. And you can get these in a longer version and in a shorter version than this. So you can hide it in spots or whatever if you want to put one of these on. Like I said, that's the part number B164, and then the filter base for it, which is also a Baldwin filter base, is OB1305. And I'll put these in the description as well, and the link for the kleenoil setup. But if you guys want to do it on the cheap, you can do this, and then it just has 1/8 filters fittings on here. The reason I actually bought this was originally I was going to put this onto my Bobcat, and I just never have done it. I should do it though, because it wouldn't hurt for it to have one on it. So, and really when it comes down to it, you know, lots of guys say, oh, well, you know, it's a waste of money. Why am I putting a bypass filter on there? Just change my oil. And I understand the theory behind it by guys saying that. Myself personally, how I look at it is, one, if you're running a bypass oil filter, you still need to change this filter, your full flow filter, every oil change interval. I change this, when I'm running a bypass oil filter, I change this between 3,000 and 5,000 kilometers. So let's say between even 3,000 to 5,000 miles, let's say. I still change this because this is gonna collect all the large chunks, and you wanna cut this apart and make sure there isn't any big chunks or anything in there. That is something that I always do too. Cut the filters apart, check them, make sure that there's, you know, not metal floating around and that type of stuff inside your engine. Because if you are, that's obviously gonna be a problem for the inside of the engine. And then you can either have your oil tested, like an oil analysis done, but I have actually done a test with my 95 12 valve. I went, I was checking the oil, or I was changing this filter every 5,000 kilometers, and then I was changing the bypass filter every 20,000 kilometers, and I went 60,000 kilometers. Was it 60,000 or 50,000? No, it was 60,000. I'm pretty sure it was 60,000. This is a long time ago now. 60,000 kilometers, and I still didn't need to change the oil. And when I did the oil analysis, I was still good on my oil. I did not need to change it. I was just kabukied out because I was using cheap oil. So that tells you that the oil was still, all the numbers came back good. I did not need to change it. So that being said, you know, you can go 60,000 kilometers, which would be what, 45,000 miles on one oil change. Now that being said, like I said, now saying that is, I was still changing this every 5,000 kilometers. So I still had to add a 1 liter of oil or so back into the engine every 5,000 kilometers. And then I was changing this every 10,000 kilometers. Yeah, it was every 10, or was it 20? No, I think it was 20. Sorry, it was 20. We're, like I said, we're going back quite a few years now, so it's a little fuzzy at the moment for some reason. But if you're doing that, you can save yourself a little bit of hassle. Myself personally, I like running it just for the cleanliness part of the system. You know, I'm probably gonna run, I think likely what I'll end up doing is I'm gonna change this filter every 5,000 kilometers, and I'll change this probably, I'll change this every 20, and then I'm gonna change oil once a year, is probably what I'm gonna end up doing. I'll probably change it, in spring, because then as I use it over the winter time, if any moisture or anything gets in, this is going to get loaded up with moisture. Then the system will be cleaned in the spring, so that, and I do potentially do a lot more driving in the summer than in the winter. So that is what we're going to do on this truck, just so you guys understand. And when I do my first, I'm going to do an oil change on it, then we'll do another oil change on it, just because the engine is sat. I like to make sure that there's nothing floating in there that shouldn't be. And then I'll start doing oil analysis on it every 10,000 kilometers, and then see what they recommend to do, just for the sake of you guys. Or every 10, maybe every 5. Maybe I'll do it every 5 just to show you guys. And it's also one of those things for me is that, you know, you don't need to do it that often, but I'll show you guys what's what, right? Just The only thing is it's going to be over a long period of time, right? But I personally think that it makes a difference just because you're pulling all the garbage out that this filter won't pull out. Even if you're using this one, like this one obviously is going to be better, but even doing this one, it's going to take stuff out 5 microns, and this one's the best it's doing is 30. So, you know, it makes perfect sense to me. I know lots of guys are going to say, oh, I don't need to do that, it's a waste of money, you don't need to do that. By all means, if you don't want to do it, cool, don't do it. I'm fine with that. It doesn't make any difference to me. I have seen the benefits of it. I've seen the benefits in road tractors. I've seen the benefits in equipment. I've seen the benefits in pickup trucks. Actually, the friend of mine, customer friend, whatever you want to call him, he had a 2010 Dodge with one of these filters. I installed it for him. He put 790,000 kilometers on his 6.7. He was changing the oil every 30,000 kilometers. He was changing the full flow filter every 15,000 kilometers. And when we took that engine apart, it had next to no cylinder wear, and the bearings all still look brand new. He wasn't using anything special for oil. He was using Shell Rotella 1540 non-synthetic and Baldwin oil filters with this filter, no additives. So that tells you right there that it obviously does something with 710K on it, no bearing wear, and almost no cylinder wear. I think it was like a 2 thou taper in it. With 700,000K, 2 thou taper is not very much. Lots of trucks with 100,000 kilometers have 2 thou taper. So hopefully that helps a guy out as far as that goes. You can, like I said, I'll put a link in the description for kleenoil. You can go on their website, if you want to do some more research. They have a bunch of information in there. Like I said, there's lots of different companies that make these. This is just the one that I've used in the past. So, and like I said, if you want to do one on the cheap, you can do this, I'm going to use these ones there again because I have them. But you know, if you want to do it on the cheap because you don't have a lot of money to spend, this can be done really cheap. Now, I do want to talk quickly about installing. There'll be a separate video when I'm installing it. It'll be in the video of me working on my truck. But I do want to talk to you guys about hooking one of these things up. So let's just go over, to the engine over there that I have. This is the engine we pulled out of the truck. Now, hooking up a bypass oil filter, what I recommend doing, I know lots of guys have asked me about this, and I think it was Jim. Yeah, it was Jim, I think, was asking me where he should put the oil return into. Now, on a 12 valve, I don't recommend putting it into the valve covers because you'll tend to put too much oil into the valve cover and it can't get away fast enough. Not that there's a huge flow of oil, I think it's more than the valve cover, one single valve cover can handle. Common rail, different story, but still not the most optimal place to do it. Now, if you are running 12 valve, I'll give you a couple different options. So your feed is going to come out of here, out of one of these two. If you are running compounds, you will have both of these plugged off, or both of these used, I should say, not plugged off. You're going to want to either tee off of there. You can drill and tap a hole into this. You can, if you really want, you can pull oil off the side here. I don't recommend doing that because you're going to tend to starve the engine a little bit for oil, so I don't recommend doing that. But you can. There is more than one way to do it, but you can do it that way if you really want to. Now, oil return. Now, oil return on a regular 12 valve with only one oil drain. So some 12 valves are going to have an oil drain here or here, here and here. This one only has one because it's a non-Encore block. If you have one there and you're not running compounds, you can punch that out and put one of these. I'll put a little picture right here. One of those there. Now what I do when I have them apart is I actually put bungs in the side of the oil pan, so that one for compounds, and I put an extra one so if I want to put an oil bypass or whatever, you can plumb it right into there. Another option is you get a billet fill cap. You can put it into a billet fill cap. Another option is you can drill and tap into your gear case and do that. If you have the front cover off, you can drill and tap into there. You can put one in the side of the oil pan while the oil pan is on. Not the best way to do it, but you can do it. I've done them lots of times like that, no problems. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it. I recommend if you can drain it back into the oil pan, it's the best way to do it, I think. But like I said, there is different ways to do it. I actually have seen guys also, I've never done it this way, but you can do it this way. Is what you do is you take an oil feed here, and then what you do is you actually put it back into the block. You put it back into the block in between your oil sensor and your block, and what it'll do, it'll actually bypass, it'll take the oil from that side and it brings it into this side. I've done that to try to add oiling to the other side of the block. I honestly don't know if it makes a difference or not. Didn't hurt anything, but I don't know if it made a difference. But you can also do it that way. Like I said, there's lots of different ways. There's lots of different ways to skin a cat, right? So, but I'm gonna be doing it on that truck the same way I had it done, set up before. It'll be coming out of this housing where I have it drilled and tapped, and then it is gonna be going back into the oil pan. So that's the way I had it hooked up originally, when the different engine, but when the engine was in, that engine was in it prior, that's how I had it hooked up. So that's how I'll be hooking it back up this go around. But like I said, there's lots of different ways to do it. But you do want to make sure you get it hooked up properly. You don't want it to leak, that type of jazz. So hopefully this helps the guy out. Like, subscribe, hit me down in the comments, and remember, it's not rocket science.